My name's Grace. I'm 14. I'm from England in the UK, and I'm a climate activist with Fridays for Future, Extinction Rebellion, and the campaign to save Congo rainforest.
So, Grace, what actually made you to participate in this climate change revolution?
So I basically just heard about the strikes, and I got involved and went to one of them, and then I started thinking about how important this issue was, and then I got more involved. So it's not really a very exciting story, but yeah, I just got inspired by the strikes basically.
So, who all are your friends also got inspiration from you?
So I had some classmates who did a few strikes with me, and I think they found it inspiring that I took the campaign on so much, and I think maybe some of my Twitter community have followed me in striking.
How do you see this climate change is a disaster?
Yes, so if we don't turn this around, then there's the potential for massive global suffering through droughts, wildfires, floods, and other increased natural disasters and animal extinction. If we don't have, for instance, access to water, then we can't grow crops, and if we don't have access to water, we can't drink ourselves, and yeah, there will be a lot of things that are affected, and some people will also be directly affected through the crises such as wildfires destroying their homes.
Do you relate disaster happened just now in Australia?
I think it was definitely, even if it was created naturally, it was definitely increased in volume and in severity by the climate crisis, and quite possibly even in the first place it was caused by the climate crisis, because it was far worse than it normally would be, and with widespread destruction and many deaths of animals and loss of homes and so on. And I think it was definitely increased by the climate crisis, if not caused by it.
So, you think you're worried about climate change?
Yes, absolutely.
What's your routine actually? How do you protest?
So daily I go in front of my local town hall with a Save Congo Rainforest sign, because the Congo rainforest is burning and no one's talking about it. And then each week I go into bigger cities for Fridays for Future, and then I join other demonstrations when they're going on, and I am quite active on Twitter spreading the word, and sometimes I give speeches. I'm currently working on a project of a book of essays about the climate crisis by other youth activists, because I'm also a writer, so I do quite a lot of things, but it's mainly that sort of thing.
Who do you think is much responsible for this climate threat?
Well, in general, it's more privileged countries are obviously causing more emissions. For instance, like countries like the UK or the US are causing more emissions than countries, for instance, in Africa or South America. And then, but obviously it's not all of us, it's mainly the politicians and the fossil fuel companies and other big corporations.
How do you explain about Greta Thunberg? Did you get any kind of inspiration from her also?
Yes, very much. So when I first started getting involved and then I watched one of her speeches, I got even more inspired to be more involved. And every time I see some of the more amazing things she's doing, then I want to get more involved. For instance, I used to strike only every month because that's what they do here in the UK. But once then I kept seeing how much amazing stuff Greta was doing, so I thought I can start striking every week because I'm taught at home, so I don't have to skip school to strike every week.
How do you manage your study?
So I'm obviously, because I'm taught at home, I have a lot more freedom to be able to go and like protest, and my mum lets me do that. And a lot of the stuff I work on is independent projects, which are often linked to the climate crisis. And then sometimes my mum sets us work and things, but if I have something else more pressing to do, then I just do that instead. And when I was at school, I wasn't so much of a full-time climate activist, but I did struggle a bit with like doing homework and also things for the climate crisis. But then I left school to be home educated, so now it's easier.
Developed countries emitted already a lot of carbon dioxide, right? And developing countries are trying to get developed, so they are also contributing into emission, right?
But I think basically developed countries are still creating emissions, even though we've already got a lot of things like enough houses and schools and roads, and some countries don't have those things. So rich countries need to get to zero emissions faster to allow poorer countries to have a chance to build some basic infrastructure like schools and roads and homes for people, because otherwise their standard of life in many countries will still be very poor for some people, because we've emitted so much that they can't build anything without creating more emissions.
So do you think that all of you are going to give away if government doesn't act worldwide?
So, well, I mean, if the government doesn't act worldwide, then it's going to be a lot harder to obviously stop the crisis. But I'm hoping that the people will be able to pressure action on the governments worldwide, and that if the governments can't change, then I mean, we need an entire system change, and perhaps if they're not willing to change, then something has to stop, or we have to change something in the system so that they're no longer the ones making all the decisions.
What is your message to the world?
Well, my message to the ordinary people is that you do have the power to make change, even if you think you don't. People actually have more power than you think you have, and especially the youth, and this is our future, and so we're going to fight for it. And thank you those who are already doing so, because you're inspiring me. My message to the world leaders is that we've got to change, you've got to bring change, and that if you're not going to, then we're going to do it for you. We're going to be the change.
Would you like to participate in any summit happen on the basis of climate change around the world? Do you have a willingness to travel?
Yes, I mean, I would probably not fly to lots of places, because that would make me feel like a hypocrite. But for instance, the climate summit COP26 is going to be in Glasgow this year, and all I have to do to go to Glasgow would be to get a train. So if I can get a badge or get invited, then I would definitely go there and try and help make change and meet other activists and so on.
So have you ever had any discussion with Greta?
I haven't ever met her in person, but she has messaged me before saying that she, basically that she really admires what I'm doing and hopes that we'll meet one day.
Do you have any message especially for Greta?
Yes, thank you. Greta is amazing, and you inspire me every day. And without Greta, then I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be a climate activist, I don't think. So and she's become a global voice of conscience and has made so much of the world wake up to the climate crisis, and I think that's so amazing for just another teenager.
Grace, what's your ambition?
Well, I mean, at the moment I'm going to keep being a climate activist, obviously, but probably to be a writer, yeah, I write a lot of novels and things, so I'd like to do that for a living. And yeah, with my climate activism, one of my ambitions is to meet Greta, but also to give maybe some more speeches at a more global level, and basically to be part of the solution to this crisis, I hope. I haven't got anything published yet, except in some writing competitions, but yeah, I write a lot of things, but I've written poetry about the climate crisis, and I've also written various fictional novels, mostly just about, yeah, in loads of different genres. But yeah, and I'm also working on this book of youth climate activist essays, which is a project I'm very excited about, and I'm getting to work with amazing people from all around the world. So,
Do you have any message to Donald Trump?
I'm not sure that's someone I really want to talk to, but in general, yeah, to the world leaders, you've got to just wake up and do something, because otherwise we're going to do it for you. We've had enough.
So
yes.
do you have a message to the Prime Minister of India, who is Narendra Modi?
Well, I would say I can't say I know a lot about the government in India, but I know of some very inspiring young activists in India, such as, I have no idea how to say her name, but Lisipriya Kangujam. I've listened to those people, because yeah, I don't know an awful lot about India, but I think if there are protesters in India, so obviously more needs to be done, and I would say listen to the climate kids in India.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Grace.